everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah and today we are going to be talking about A Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. This was just a fun read. Like, it was a quick, fun fairy tale type retelling story with a little bit of a twist, and I just had a lot of fun reading it. And I do have to say I'm really intrigued by the ending, and I'm interested to see how the story progresses in the second book in this duology. So I'll start out, as I always do, with a quick spoiler-free summary, and then I'll get into some of the spoilers and my thoughts on the story. So Violet Made of Thorns is the story of Violet Loon, who is a seer in the kingdom of... fair warning, I'm probably gonna butcher these names. Like, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on phonetics, but I'm gonna struggle. I believe it's Avani. Being that she works for the king as the royal seer, there's a lot of political things involved with that. And we also have Prince Cyrus, who was involved in Violet getting her position. They do not get along, even though they used to be friends. I wouldn't quite say that they're... No, I think I would say that they're enemies. I think that's fair. Cyrus is getting ready to take the throne from his father, who is ill and just ready to pass it on. And there has been this prophecy about the kingdom and all of these horrible things that are going to happen. So both Cyrus and Violet have to work together with some other people to try to stop those horrible things from happening. So that's about it, keeping it spoiler free. So I'll go ahead and get into some spoilers of this book. And also my thoughts on the story. I'm not entirely sure if this was a Cinderella retelling. Like, it very much had Cinderella vibes at times, but I guess now I'm also thinking like maybe Rapunzel. I don't know, maybe it was just like a whole bunch of fairy tales mixed together. So Violet lives in this really tall tower. So Rapunzel, I guess, I don't know. And she is not from the kingdom that she currently lives in. She was kind of like an orphan, abandoned on the streets. And when she was first coming into her like sight powers, she saw a vision of the prince and his twin sister Camilla like out in the streets, and he was getting run over by a carriage or a horse. I think it was a horse specifically. So in her vision, she had no idea who these people are, but she finally sees them and is able to stop the horse from killing Cyrus. And of course, he's extremely grateful as an 11-year-old can be, and so offers for her to come back to the palace with them, where she is given the position as a royal seer, learning from the current seer, who passes away like rather quickly after that. So as a very young child, she's in this position where she's indebted to the king for giving her this position she wants for absolutely nothing now, but also he is asking her to do a little bit more than what her duties as seer would entail, in specifically wording things and phrasing things so that they benefit him. So when the story begins, Cyrus is returning from this big long trip where he was supposed to find a bride. He was supposed to get married to try to end this prophecy from happening where war would come to the continent. But of course, Cyrus can't just pick a bride because he needs to fall in love to find a bride. He can't just pick somebody to secure some sort of political alliance or anything like that. So everyone's pretty frustrated with him for not choosing someone as he was traveling throughout the various areas. But he is home now, and the king says to Violet, hey, I have arranged this marriage. We need to make it look like Cyrus is like enchanted by this woman and that he's falling in love with her, so that he'll be convinced to get married to her and this alliance can form. What's interesting about a lot of the characters is like no one's really ever convinced by all of the lying. Cyrus figures it out almost immediately. Like I don't think there's ever, unless there's some sort of like magical enchantment or glamour, nobody is like ever convinced, none of the main characters, I guess I should say, none of them are ever convinced by any of the lies. Like the regular people are very convinced by Violet and whatever she says or whatever the king asks her to say. But for the most part, like all of the main characters, like the king will tell Violet to like spin whatever her prophecy was in a certain way or to lie about something, and they'll immediately be like, that wasn't the truth, was it? So like nobody really believes her, which is kind of interesting because like her job is to predict the future, like reading their palms and stuff, and like nobody believes her. Anyway, that's probably good because that led to a lot of things that not happening that would have been bad or happening that should have happened. You know, it ended up like plot-wise, it ended up working out, but just interesting now that I'm thinking about that. So the king decides to have this masquerade ball where Cyrus will try to choose a bride, knowing that his person that he's picked out will be glamored by fairies to look absolutely enchanting, and try to convince his son that that's who he should marry. So Cyrus and Violet start out as friends when they're kids, and just by the nature of their positions, where she is kind of doing whatever the king tells her to do, which involves a lot of lying, and Cyrus is just always trying to charm people with his princely charm, they end up like not liking each other and certainly not trusting each other. But of course, at the masquerade ball, they both have this moment where they're in the maze together, and Violet looks beautiful in her dress, and the prince looks like super handsome in his mask and everything. And then the glamored woman that the king picked out finally arrives, and the prince's twin sister Camilla like immediately realizes that there's so much fairy glamour on her that it's enchanting people, and so she like splashes blood on her, which ruins the glamour, and she runs away, and the prince goes after her, of course. But then like the next day he shows up at Violet's tower with her shoe, so that's why it was like Cinderella retelling, I guess. And is kind of like, so my father set all of that up, right? So like, that's what I mean. Like nobody really fell for any of the lies. Like they all figured it out really quickly. And so Prince like slowly admits throughout the story that he has feelings for Violet. He does not trust her, and he does not want her to work as seer when he becomes king. But he might be either falling in love with her or already in love with her. Two separate things. They have their little moments throughout the story. The mystery woman, they finally find her. She is supposed to be Lady Rhea from the country of Balika, I believe is what it's called. But when Violet looks into so when Violet is looking into somebody's future or past, she connects, like she touches their palm, and Violet is able to see various threads that connect the future and the past of that person. So she finds out through reading Lady Rhea's palm thread thing, that she is actually just a handmaid. Her name is Nadia. Her mistress was killed by this witch of nightmare. Up to this point, Violet has been communicating with the fates, and somebody else that she thought was a fate, but doesn't really seem to be on this, like doesn't seem to have the same agenda that the fates do. So she's kind of uncertain about that person, but really interested in what they have to say and the fact that they really want her to kill the prince. She's kind of on board with that. So in speaking with Nadia and reading her threads, they find out that there's this witch who is kind of creating these beasts that are like part animal, part forest, part human, all monster, that are attacking people, and she is wanting to kind of get to the kingdom through Cyrus. So to kind of keep things running smoothly in the kingdom, they develop this plot where Nadia is going to continue to pretend to be Lady Rhea. The engagement with Cyrus is still on for the time being. Violet is gonna keep like making up these lies that yes, the wedding's gonna happen, everything will be great, that will save us from the war. And behind the scenes, they are all trying to figure out what is actually going on and how they can stop this war from happening. There's one other character that I am now just realizing I forgot to mention, and it's Cyrus's friend Dante, and he is a scholar. The reason I say I forgot to mention him is because he has a bit of an important role at the end, and I just now realized if I didn't say who he was, it was gonna sound really weird if I was just like, Dante did this. So he's in this crew that's working to kind of figure out what's going on with this prophecy of the wars and the witch and all of this stuff. So as I mentioned, Violet has kind of been talking with the Fates, and basically she's gotten the idea from them that because she saved Cyrus from dying when he was a kid, he's got to die now. Like, they still need that to be taken care of. So either she can do it or they can do it with war and all of this other stuff. And then she has this other little voice in her head that's saying like, yes, kill the prince. Here's actually, if you use your blood, which is a little bit magical, you can make this giant thorn that you can stab through his heart to kill him. So everyone like really wants the prince to die. The wedding finally comes, and the king had asked Violet to say like just kind of a general blessing over Cyrus and Nadia, who they all think is Rhea, and kind of convince the people that like this is going to solve all of their problems. And she was kind of torn about it because she wasn't sure if she still wanted to be the king's pawn or if she really wanted to do something else, and throw into that mix her whatever feelings she may or may not have for Cyrus at the time as well. So like it was just really complicated. But the wedding never happens because as they are all getting ready, they find two people who look exactly like Lady Rhea fighting in the courtyard. And so the witch has finally arrived, and as she is kind of revealing that Nadia is just a handmaiden, she's not really a like any sort of leader like they thought she was, and that Violet was the one who had read her threads, Cyrus gets suspicious of all of them and locks them all up. Then he confronts Violet and kind of says like, hey, I want to trust you. Well, I know I'll never trust you, but I like this was for the best. And she of course says, you know, the witch will never stay. Like, she's not gonna stay. Even no matter how many guards you have there, she's gonna get out. And so we need a plan to figure that out. And they just kind of keep arguing, and she's like, you know what? Fine, I've had enough. Here's this thorn. I'm gonna stab you through the heart with it. And he's like, go ahead and do it. And so she does it. And then he starts turning into one of these like gross beasts that have been terrorizing people that are like part plant, part animal, part human. And so she freaks out because somehow that's worse than her killing him. But the witch finally does break free of her little prison and comes in and says, hey, I was that random voice in your head. Glad you killed him. That problem's taken care of. He'll need to feed or he turns into a beast, like fully into a beast. And so Violet then realizes like she can use her blood, which has some magical properties, to kind of turn him back into a human, and she is able to do that. Around the same time, we also find out that Dante, see, this is the part where I was like, I need to talk about this character before we get to this important part. He had been acting as a spy per Cyrus's request, but the king doesn't really believe that. He thinks that he was just a spy, like trying to harm the kingdom. And so Dante sees the only way out of this situation is to kill the king and then jump out of a window. So his fate's kind of left it's unclear, but the king is dead, so Cyrus is now officially king. And the way that the story concludes is he realizes that he needs Violet to stay because he needs her blood so that he doesn't continue turning into a beast. And he also needs a queen. So he asks her and she says yes. And that's kind of where everything wraps up. So I know that this is book one in a duology. And I'm really intrigued to see where the story goes. Cause like it kind of all wrapped up, but also like these two hate each other. So like, what are they gonna do as king and queen? Like, I'm so intrigued. So this was a really fun read. As I mentioned at the beginning, it was quick to get through. Like the story was really interesting. I definitely recommend checking this out. I'm not really sure when the second book is coming out. I couldn't find a lot of information about that, so hopefully it's soon, but definitely check this out. And if you have, let me know what your thoughts are as well. So that's it for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!